Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We are back in the swing of things for a very important week of Tampa Bay Buccaneers football because the next practice the Bucs will be having won't be in Tampa. It'll actually be in New Jersey against the New York Jets in a joint practice. But we'll talk about that later because we have two practices to get into on today's show with Sunday's practice and what we saw this Monday morning. And a lot of it is predicated around the quarterback competition. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. And Scott, we were out there this morning, another exciting day of football. And little by little, Baker Mayfield is taking the reins on this quarterback competition.
Yeah, he is. And boy, it was nice this morning after the oven that has been the Tampa Bay area with just some oppressive heat and not much rain. The clouds came in later this afternoon. Might get some showers tonight, but a much cooler, breezier day. And the players really enjoyed that. We looked at the weather forecast for New Jersey. 85 degrees up there. That's going to be nice. That's going to be very welcome. A change for this Buccaneer team that has really been sweating it out. It's been a hot training camp, and the quarterback competition's heating up. And I think ever since Kyle Trask, probably during that second week of practice, came on and really started to assert himself and win some of those practices by making plays and not turning the ball over, I think you have to give credit to Baker Mayfield because he's really stepped up. And he's risen to the occasion, not just in Friday's game against the Steelers, but in practice, he has been making more plays, and he's kind of cut down on his interceptions. And even though he had an interception yesterday, you were out there for that practice, Matt, against Ryan Neal.
Yeah,
that was one play, man. He was on fire for the rest of the practice and was making touchdowns happen and magic happen all over the field. Probably, from what I was told from my sources, probably had his best practice as a Buccaneer. And this is coming off the heels of an 8 of 9 passing performance with one touchdown in limited action against the Steelers.
Yeah, I would say that is a fair assumption to make, particularly for yesterday's practice, Sunday's practice, as it pertains to Baker Mayfield. Real quick, I'll just say about Kyle Trask is that he's done a good job of keeping this a legit competition.
Yeah.
Baker's not running away with it. He's starting to separate himself. But Kyle Trask has done a very solid job. So I do want to compliment him as well. But yeah, for Sunday's practice, not many footballs hit the ground, particularly when Baker Mayfield was under center or in shotgun for the Buccaneers. And I think more importantly than anything else, the chemistry with Mike Evans is clear and apparent. I mean, Scott, they were indoors, so maybe things are just like a little bit flashier because the way the helmet reflects off the light being inside. But man, every single time that Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans connected, it wasn't just like, hey, a first down or hey, like way to convert the third down. No, It was big play, big yardage, big yaks. I mean, it started early with a 30-yard reception catch and run where Mike probably caught it about 15 yards down the field and then took it another 15 before he even really got touched. And I know like some tackles are kind of just assumed because, there is no tackling anymore. But really the big play, and you can see it on the Bucs social media as well, is Baker and Mike Evans connecting for about overall would have been like an 80-yard touchdown, but like 50 to 60 yards in the air. Baker thrown it. Mike had a step ahead of two defensive backs. I believe one of them was Keenan Isaac, who's been kind of getting picked on the past couple of practices.
He's a rookie.
And another defensive back in there. But Mike connected on that one for a big touchdown, the biggest play of that practice. A couple of other ones, a beautiful back shoulder throw by Baker to Mike Evans. If you took like the first 3 receptions that Mike had, all thrown by Baker, it would be like 3 receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown. Like that's just unreal, even in a training camp type of setting. So Baker found his chemistry with Mike, but extended way beyond just Mike. Trey Palmer, obviously, who had the big day in the preseason game with Baker, made some big catches, a 20-yard reception. So I think there were a couple of guys that had notable performances in the preseason game, whether it was Baker going 8 of 9, Trey Palmer, who's Green having that really stellar touchdown, and Marquise Watts, who we'll talk about later, but Marquise Watts as well, who made a big play in the preseason game. Those guys really carried their momentum from Friday's preseason game and really brought it on Sunday. Monday was a little bit of a different story. This morning was a little bit of a different story, but still a lot of important things, a lot of successful takeaways as well. So starting to move in the right direction, or at least certain guys are pushing the pack.
Yeah, and today the quarterbacks kind of cooled off, like all of them. And I think it wasn't just because of their misfires. I think Kyle Trask probably had more misfires than anybody today. And then there was a lot of drops. And I just put the practice report in the chat so you guys can read that. We won't harp on it too much because there's more important things to kind of discuss. But Wolford, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask all had drops today. And I think maybe the thing that concerned me the most about Kyle Trask was he got sacked a lot today.
Yeah.
And what we mean by sacked is somebody that has a clear, free run to go with the quarterback, right? And then peels off. That's what we determine to be a sack. If that person is a would-be sack, if that person is right there and the quarterback has the ball in his hand still, that's a sack. And we saw Baker Mayfield do a better job of getting rid of the ball quickly today. Kyle Trask, by my count, got sacked 3 or 4 times. And some of these really aren't on the offensive line. Some of them are also on the backs. And sometimes it's a hot read. They're bringing more than you have in to protect, and you got to get rid of the ball. But we saw Ryan Neal come in. Antoine Winfield Jr. Have one. Josh Hayes, the rookie out of K-State, had a sack. And Marquise Watts, boy, this guy, as you pointed out in yesterday's practice report, had 3 sacks on Sunday during his practice. Well, the Buccaneers were working on goal line situations, not just down there about the 2-yard line going in, but also goal line in the shadow of your own goal line at the 2-yard line coming out. And so that puts a lot of pressure on the offense to get some positive yards and either try to get a first down or at least get enough room to where your punter is not punting from the back of the end zone. And Marquise Watts, who had a nice strip sack against the Steelers on Friday night, he had a safety in practice. He split Tristan Wirfs and Matt Filer with a nice move, got in between both of those guys and got the Trask before the ball came out. So it's not like Kyle Trask is playing bad. It's just he's kind of plateaued. He improved and he's plateaued while Baker Mayfield tends to just incrementally get a little bit better and is a little bit more comfortable and is developing more chemistry with his targets, including Mike Evans, as you noted.
Yeah, it's well put, Scott. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from Kyle specifically, going back to Sunday's practice a little bit, a lot of Bucs defenders were getting sacks over the last 2 days. And maybe that's an offensive line thing. We mentioned a lot of those guys. Marquise Watts had 3 sacks. He had a hat trick on Sunday's practice. Shout out to Anthony Nelson as well, because he had 2, but he had 1 from each side.
Right.
So I think that was really a standout moment. But for Kyle specifically, who took some of those sacks and had the sacks in the game as well, where Baker didn't. But again, Baker had a lot more rollouts and was able to avoid it easier.
Right.
For Kyle, he got in trouble with that interception in the game against the Steelers because he was just kind of looking.
Right.
And at Sunday's practice, a lot of the times when Kyle got sacked, it was a nice job by the defensive line staying in their lanes, because we've seen Kyle be able to scramble a lot, and he wasn't able to do that. So there was a couple of covered sacks. But then today, and that goes back to Yaya, what we were talking about on the other podcast, if he went inside and Pickett was able to go outside.
Right.
But for Trask, he wasn't able to really escape and show that escapability, which he has proven before in this training camp. And then today, I forgot if it was Winfield or Ryan Neal, but one of them just went completely untouched.
It was Winfield.
Yes. And the scary part is, again, if it was live contact, he obliterates Kyle Trask, loses the football. But what was scary is it wasn't like he came from the blind side of Kyle Trask.
Right. It was an inside blitz.
Inside blitz. Kyle's just looking the other way.
Didn't even see him.
I think he probably just thought it was more of the breeze because it was a bit of a breezy day at practice today. But no, it was Antoine Winfield Jr. Flying right by him. So Kyle, at least the past couple of days, I'm not going to say for the entirety of training camp, but as you pointed out, Scott, every single day is a snapshot of what we see. What we see in the last 2 practices from Kyle Trask is he's looking a little bit too much. He's holding onto the ball a little bit too much. And sometimes, and he has been doing that all the time, but the last 2 days, this is what we're going by. And I think some of it is just good coverage by the Bucs secondary. And this defense is very talented. So they're going to make plays, and there's going to be these situations, but it's just happening a little bit more with Kyle right now than it is Baker.
I think that's spot on, Matt, because in the second week, it seemed like Kyle Trask was getting quicker with his reads. He was more decisive, and it was just faster. And I think the game slowed down for him enough to where he could play faster. And now, for whatever reason, as we enter week 4, maybe it was just seeing some live action, right? And he got sacked a couple times, and we'll get into that a little bit with Luke Gedeke. And so I don't know if it was that, if it was the interception, that those things are kind of in the back of his mind a little bit. But it seems like he has slowed down, and maybe the game has gotten a little faster. In other words, it's kind of like a reverse of what happened during that second week of training camp, which was really, really good for him. So, listen, we're not crapping on Kyle here. He's made strides. He looks a lot better. That was a better performance, I think, than any of his preseason games outside of the Texans game. Was that last year or 2 years ago? But I thought he looks more like a legitimate NFL quarterback right now. And I think that he is, whereas last year, Blaine Gabbert was clearly the better quarterback for the number 2 job. And I like John Wolford. Don't get me wrong. John Wolford's a really good number 3 quarterback. But Kyle Trask, if he's your number 2, it's a more legitimate number 2 this year, right? And we'll see how it fares. But I think Baker Mayfield is going to be the starting quarterback. That has not been decided yet, that is not set in stone, but we've kind of been saying this all along. It's Baker's job to lose, and I think Baker now is doing his part to assert himself as that starting quarterback. And if Trask wants to beat him out, it has to be decisively, because if all things are even and equal, the tiebreaker is going to go to the guy with the most experience, and that's Baker.
And Scott, this is what we've talked about, where the biggest grading point, and yes, practice is part of it, but the biggest grading point was always going to be the preseason games.
Correct.
And that's because if you take everything on a level playing field and you just look at practice, then you say, oh, well, Baker has all these interceptions and Kyle Trask has some, but he's been taking care of the ball way, way better. But then, context is everything. And as we're learning from watching the first preseason game, and especially with this one joint training camp practice coming up and the next game against the Jets. I mean, what happened in the preseason game? Baker Mayfield had 1 incomplete pass. He was 8 of 9. He took care of the ball. He looked good in the red zone, threw a great pass to Trey Palmer. Kyle Trask pushed the ball down the field. He was able to throw it over the middle of the field, and he had the one glaring mistake. And that's why we need all of this context. We need as much different looks, information, opponents that we can really all glean from and just understand, because there's a lot more to the story of, Baker has 9 interceptions in 12 practices or whatever it is, because Baker looked pretty good when the lights were on and
that's right.
when it was most crucial for him.
Yeah.
And
that's in the games. Yeah. And so these preseason games count the most. And then after that, it's the joint practice, not practices like we were hoping, practice. It came out today that the Jets, maybe they're ducking the Bucs.
Well, the Jets also had a joint training camp practice last week against the Panthers. So maybe they're just sick of the NFC South.
I guess so. Todd Bowles, he's shrugging his shoulders. I thought we had 2 practices against you guys. Now you tell us there's only 1 on Wednesday as opposed to Thursday. So the Bucs and Jets will be practicing separately on Thursday. So only 1 joint practice. Now, if you recall last year, the Buccaneers had a total of 4 joint practices. They had 2 against the Dolphins here in Tampa, and then they played the Dolphins at home in the preseason opener. And then they went on the road last year to Nashville and played the Tennessee Titans in a preseason road game and had 2 joint practices against the Titans. So they had 4 joint practices last year, only 1 this year, and that's against the Jets on Wednesday. So Matt, you and Adam Slavon are going to be up there Wednesday and Thursday covering the Buccaneer practices, and then also Saturday for the game up in the press box. So stick to pewterreport.com and our X and Facebook accounts for all of the latest coverage of your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll throw this up there right now just so you understand what we're talking about here. Social media, Matt and Sly are going to be covering practice and doing as much reporting as they can up there. We're not sure exactly what the Jets' parameters are in terms of live tweeting during practices, but they're going to do as much as humanly possible. So make sure that you're following us at Pewter Report on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. We're over 11,200, on the way to 11,300, thanks to you, Pewter people. So make sure you're following us there and subscribing to Pewter Report TV, and also pewterreport.com. That's where we have all of our stories, including our camp insiders. We have one up today I just put in the chat, so make sure you check that out. We'll have a Tristan Wirfs training camp diary for tomorrow, as well as I talked to Dave Canales and had an exclusive interview with him after practice today about his first play calling.
Yeah, a lot of Dave Canales content coming out over the next couple of days. We appreciate everybody. Got some good feedback about everyone enjoying just our live tweeting of practice and everything like that. And from what I've been told so far, things could change a little bit, but the Jets kind of operate under the same rules and regulations that the Bucs do, where we'll be able to take photo and video in the beginning part, and then we can live tweet after, but no more photo and video. So hopefully, if that's the same, you'll get the a similar amount of live play-by-play from your report X account. And Bill Devers says, as always, thanks for the coverage and keeping us up to date. Thoughts on the O-line and what we might do on the right side? Seemed like the right side was still an issue. Yeah, Mark Fisher had a similar question about Ryan Jensen too, saying, hey guys, Jensen question, how could he be okay to start against Dallas but not be okay now or versus the Vikes? I don't get it. I also just want to give a shout out real quick. A couple of other fans. Richard said happy National Creamsicle Day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creamsicle signage and everything at practice today. That was cool. But also, we love our people, which we're actually going to do roll call in 2 minutes. But wanted to give a shout out to these guys because they were shouting us out when we were at practice.
Yeah.
Today. Nick C says, let's go Pewter Report. Saw you guys and shouted you out today. Wore my creamsicle Josh Freeman jersey. Nick, appreciate all the support, man. Awesome you got to go out to practice today, especially on Creamsicle Day. He says, you guys are the best. You're the best, Nick. We appreciate that. And then Zachary Jarvis as well says, I saw you guys today at camp with multiple exclamation points. Tried to call you guys out, and y'all didn't say nothing back. I apologize for that.
Sorry about that.
It was not on purpose. Sometimes we're just walking back and forth trying to get to the next play at practice as the Bucs move up and down the field. Apologize. Was not on purpose. We definitely try to make sure we say hello to every Pewter fan, every Pewter person that is out at practice. So sorry about that, Zachary, but we're giving you a shout out now. Zachary Jarvis, thank you for watching the show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, listen, I'm an old man. My hearing's not what it used to be, so I'm going to blame it on that. But we do have some fans that shout loud and proud at us from the stands, and that's awesome. We love you guys. I mean, we do this for you. I mean, we're not doing this Matt and I could have this conversation on the phone or in person, but no, we're doing this for you guys, the Pewter people, and it's because we love you guys. It's you guys make it worthwhile to do the Pewter Report podcast, and now that it's in video form, it's awesome. Yeah. And we love you guys so much. We want to find out where you are watching and listening and viewing from. And we do that thing on Mondays at 4:20 called, Matthew?
It is called Roll Call, as it says on the graphic. Where you at, Pewter people? As we've established, we have awesome fans of Pewter Report, not just in Tampa, not just in the state of Florida, not even just in the United States, literally all over. We have great fans, and we love interacting with the Pewter people. And one way we do that is on Monday, during roll call at 4:20, if you guys can start putting your location where you are watching from, we will put it up on the screen as we talk about a Bucs-related topic, or today a Pewter Report-related topic, as we give a shout-out and honor a legend of PewterReport.com, of course, the late, great Mark Cook.
Yeah, August 12th marks the passing of Mark Cook. Passed away 2 years ago at the age of 50, and miss this guy every day. There's something that happens every day, either Bucs related or just, I follow like the 70s sports account on Twitter that's hilarious. It's got all these old Evel Knievel stuff. And Mark and I, Mark was born in 1970. I was born in 72. So we grew up similar tastes in movies and TV shows and activities and things like that. So Just miss this guy every day. And of course, it being National Creamsicle Day, it's only fitting that we pay tribute to Mark. And now we're not doing the whole podcast on Mark. We've done that in years past. We did that after his passing, and we did that a tribute to him last year on the 1-year anniversary of his death. We miss this guy. I know the Buccaneers miss this guy. He was an absolute character. There he was with Jameis Winston. He loved his Knowles. He loved the Buccaneers. This is a picture of Mark and I from covering the Buccaneer game over in jolly old England in London. And we're having a pint there at the Admiralty before that game. Mark was actually the creator of the Pewter Report podcast, the audio version back in the day, and had a whole bunch of hijinks. You guys might remember the Def Leppard cutoff T-shirt, and of course the Chuck Berry story that had a life of its own. It seemed to never get around to the Chuck Berry story, but I finally told the Chuck Berry story probably like a year later. And of course, Mark wanting to fight Jude Ajay-Barima, the Bucs cornerback, who, in Mark's estimation, cost them the win against the Raiders a long time ago, several years ago. And of course, that flare gun right there, that was always a great bit. And there was Mark's mugshot. And no, we're not shaming Mark, and we're not bashing Mark whatsoever. We're just reporting the facts, folks. And Mark was awful proud that he got arrested for fishing without a license. So, he loved Johnny Cash. He was a rebel. And Mark Cook kind of had a little bit of Johnny Cash, maybe some Johnny spare change to him. But, when we say the players loved him, I mean, holy smokes. Which one's Mark Cook and which one's Alan Cross, right? That was the doppelganger right there. And, he always found a way to make the Pewter podcast hilarious and entertaining, to make Open Locker Room entertaining. Plant City, Florida. There you go, Bo. I mean, that was where Mark, called home. And so many great, wonderful memories. I'm going to put the links to the Mark Cook tribute show that we did last year, and then Remembering Mark Cook from a year ago. I'm going to put those in the chat. So if you want to go back and watch those episodes, I highly recommend it. Make sure you have a box of tissues handy. It's some funny stories, but also, sad, talking about the late, great Mark Cook. And as much as his fans, the Pewter people, and the Buccaneer players that got the chance to know him, miss him, we miss him the most at Pewter Report. He was an integral part of what we did. I've known Mark he was really my first friend in Florida when I came down and did an internship in 1994, because we were about the same age, and again, just an absolute legend, and help really put this Pewter Report podcast on the map. So
anytime we're in that room, that's actually where we did where we do the live draft show every year. But we used to record a lot of the Pewter Report podcasts in there. Anytime we're in that room, doing podcasts with Mark obviously comes to mind. I think about Mark a lot. Just so many things come up where I'm like, oh, this reminds me of like this time with Mark, or oh man, Mark would have reacted to this way. Even the fact that Florida State is back this year, they're ranked 8th overall in the college football preseason rankings. The fact that Florida State is back, obviously, he comes to mind, and I think it's super cool. Got to give a shout out to Greg Allman of Fox Sports, because he was one of the guys that really came up with the idea. Every year, a Bucs player gets, it was called the Good Guy Award for a Bucs player that's most helpful with the media, or gives good answers, stuff like that. And last year, Greg came up with the idea to call it the Mark Cook Good Guy Award. Because obviously Mark meant a lot to a lot of people, and Tristan Wirfs was the first recipient of the officially taglined Mark Cook Good Guy Award. So we love
Mark
Cookie.
Cook was a great guy, man.
Was a great guy, huge mentor to me, just as much as Scott has been. And so funny. A lot of pranks, a lot of hijinks, and a lot of the bits that he's come up with live on in the infamy of Pewter Report, whether it's Plant City Math or Flare Gun, and so many other ones in between. So,
well, and also too, like this one here, The one on the left, that picture there, that's when we had Bruce Arians on the podcast,
Yeah.
right? And of course, there's the Bucko Bruce shirt, right? That's Bruce Arians as the Bucko Bruce.
Yeah.
And of course, Mark had a Kegel hat and looks like a kitchen knife there too.
Yeah.
So he joined the podcast. Bruce did, with Mark looking like that, and it was just hysterical. So just miss that guy every day. And honestly, it seemed like it hit harder last year for me than it did even, the year that it happened, just because I turned 50. And, it's like you don't think of 50 being young. It's certainly not a young age, but it's not old either. It's kind of like, in that gray area. And I'm 51 now, and it's like I can't believe that I've outlived Mark Cook. It just seems wrong. He's just one of those guys just taken way too soon. And all we can do is miss him. And it's like I wrote it in the tweet on Saturday. It's like, I know he's up there jamming with Elvis and David Crosby,
Exactly.
and just having a blast up there and making heaven a funnier place. So
definitely a funnier place. Yeah. And I think he'd have a lot of great takes about this year's Bucs team. It's clearly way different than it has been in a couple of years. But, Scott, you mentioned that you're a little bit older now, and at times you need a little pick-me-up or something like that. That's why I always see you having a Celsius energy drink, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. I can't segue like Mark Cook. No one can segue like Mark Cook, but I'm going to try my hardest to do so. Celsius, of course, is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. There's so many different flavors. Their newest one is the Cosmic Vibe, which is a sparkling fruit punch. It is awesome, but all their flavors are awesome too, whether it's the sparkling lemon lime, the Arctic Vibe, cucumber lime is what I have this morning. A ton of great flavors, no sugar, no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. Just a delicious energy drink. So if you need to know where to find one, you can go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can find one and pick one up at your local convenience store, your Walmart, Target, your 7-Eleven, or this place. They actually have a lot of them in New York City and New Jersey. It is called a bodega.
Bodega.
And once you go to your bodega and you love Celsius, but you want more, that's when you go over to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. You can get them in bulk. I'd recommend getting that variety pack, because variety is the spice of life, and there's so many awesome flavors of Celsius. So do that, subscribe and save. You can have it sent to your residence whenever you want. You plan it yourself. So it could be a week, a month, quarterly, yearly. Just make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Scott, we got asked about the offensive line before we started talking about Mark and going into roll call. So I think we should pick back up that conversation. And there's two guys that really come into mind when we're talking about the Bucs offensive line. One is Ryan Jensen. Shout out to another redhead out there, the redhead in the Bucs community. There's a lot of them. And Luke Gedeke, I think, is really the other one that is kind of taking this by storm in not the most positive way. But those are two very polarizing topics along the offensive line. Yeah. And now they're going to play against a Jets team that, annihilated the Panthers the other day. And Bryce Young really had a welcome to the NFL type of
he did,
situation. I'm a little worried about the Bucs offensive line in terms of these one-on-one matchups against the Jets coming up on Wednesday.
I am too. And it's not just one or two guys. It's not just the rookie Will McDonald. It's Jermaine Johnson. It's John Franklin Myers. Did I say his name right? Is that's right? Okay, yeah. They've got a quartet of big time pass rushers up there, and they can bring it. And that's not including some of the guys in the middle either. So I'm not expecting the Buccaneers to have a bunch of success either in the game on Saturday or in the joint practices. Now, I will say this: appreciate you, Bucs Basement, for always chipping in with some super chats, and the $2 super chat. This offense going nowhere with Gedeke and Malk. I'm going to say this. You can't expect these guys to step in and play NFL starting caliber football in new positions, right? I mean, this is Gedeke's second game at right tackle and in a new offense, right? This is a new offense. He learned a different one last year. Now this is new. And this is Cody Malk's first game. He was one of 27 rookies who played on Friday night in Tampa Bay for the Buccaneers. 27 rookies got their first taste of NFL action. So you don't think there's going to be penalties? You don't think there's going to be missed tackles on defense? You don't think there's going to be blown assignments, illegal formations? Yes, that's what the preseason's for, to get the kinks out of the way and to have games that don't count so you can improve. And we'll see how quickly these guys can improve and come together. It's foolish to expect these guys to come in, and when I say these guys, I'm talking specifically about Gedeke and Malk, to come in and just play like pros right off the bat.
Yeah.
Tristan Wirfs was the exception to the rule. He was the anomaly. He is the freak. He is a first-round pick. Neither Cody Malk nor Lou Gedeke were first-round picks for a reason. So, and if memory serves, Tristan Wirfs is one of the top 15 players drafted in 2020.
Yeah.
Like 14th picks, 15th, something like that.
Yeah, so they traded up one spot. That's how badly they
Yeah, so we have to be a little patient. It doesn't mean that these guys are going to develop into competent starters, although this team is pretty high on both of them. But we'll have to wait and see. They have to get the reps. They've got to get experience. And offensive line is very similar to defensive line. You can't play with the five-finger approach. It's got to be a fist. You've got to have the cohesiveness, the chemistry to play in concert, especially in the running game, which is a mid-zone scheme. It's a zone blocking scheme. You've got to step in concert with everybody and become that moving wall. So it's going to take some time. I'm telling you right now, set your expectations low against the Jets. And if they exceed them, great. That's gravy and that's a bonus. But do not expect the Buccaneers to look good against the Jets, who, in my estimation, Matt, and I certainly don't have any green blood and running through my veins, nor do I have any gangrene on any of my appendages. I don't have the Jets sickness that affects people. But this is a Super Bowl contender, right? The AFC is loaded, right? You've got the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, right? And with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets are in the conversation. The Buccaneers, maybe they contend for the NFC South this year. They're not a Super Bowl contender. So should the Buccaneers look as good as the Jets? No, they shouldn't. And now I will say this. With today's news, Matt, about the Jets only having one joint practice with the Bucs instead of two, that might change Todd Bowles' thinking. We might see more starters in this game because they're not going to get 2 days worth of work against the Jets. They're only going to get one. And I think maybe that's a good thing. I talked to Tristan Wirfs about that, and he would be bummed if he didn't play in this week's game. And he heard what Todd Bowles said. And, if the starters get enough work, then it's going to be just like Friday night. They're going to rest the starters and keep them out of harm's way. But he wants to play. And I think now we might see that, and we might have a better idea with an entire offensive line, Matt Filer and Tristan Wirfs included, what this offensive line could possibly develop into.
Yeah, I hope the limit to one joint practice does open the door for a lot of these starters to begin playing. And it was funny because Todd Bowles kind of disagreed with the sentiment that the Jets and the Bucs are similar in terms of like good rosters, needed a quarterback. But I disagree with Todd Bowles' disagreement because the Bucs, much like the Jets right now, is the same, where it's like, man, this roster's really good. If they just got a quarterback, then they could really be off to the races. And clearly the Jets have done that. But that's so important that this is a big time test for the Bucs going up against a team that is a Super Bowl contender. Whether they put it together or not, the talent is there on the roster. But as we know, there's so much more to just having a good team. There has to be chemistry, cohesiveness, and everything else in between. And the Bucs obviously have learned that throughout the past couple of years. And you're spot on when you talk about, taking time for this offensive line to build. Like, there are going to be growing pains, and we're literally seeing it in front of our eyes right now. Yeah. But we also didn't see Ryan Jensen, but we also didn't see Matt Filer and Tristan Wirfs over at left tackle. So the pass blocking is one thing, but that run game too was porous on Friday. So I want to see how the run game looks when they head to New Jersey.
Yeah. And listen, I'm with people. Like I'm not trying to make any excuses or apologies for Luke Gedeke at all. I have my concerns. I have questions about whether he is a starting caliber player. Nate Herbig played 13 snaps and really whipped him on 3. Now, one of those, it was kind of a scheme issue with the tight end kind of getting in Gedeke's way. Fine.
Knocked into him. Yeah.
But but Gedeke did give up a sack, like on his own, a pure one, and so that was a legitimate sack given up by Gedeke, and then he also got beat inside again on a run stuff by Herbig. So I'm concerned about his, not even just his athleticism, but his processing speed in terms of being able to identify the inside move and then being able to react, as opposed to having an edge rusher go up the arc against Gedeke on the outside. So we'll see. We're going to know by the Minnesota Vikings game, in my opinion, if Luke Gedeke can handle the starting job at right tackle. And in my opinion, and I wrote about this in an SR's Fab 5, the Buccaneers cannot wait as long as they did last year to pull the plug if it looks like Gedeke is not up to the task. And I firmly believe that. And I'm telling you right now, we have a question here. Is Matt Filer an option at right tackle? We have guard depth, but it might be an option if Luke is a bust. So I'm with you. And I'll say this, Edward. They practiced with Justin School today, who's been the left tackle. Remember, he started left tackle against the Steelers on Friday night. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to be the swing guy, and he's going to replace Josh Wells as that third guy off the bench, playing left and right tackle. He played right tackle today, and Brandon Walton got time at left tackle, but he was playing right tackle against the Steelers, and he's been kind of like the number 2 right tackle in training camp. So I think right now it probably wouldn't be Filer. It would probably either be School or Walton if Gedeke can't handle it. And we'll see. Like I said, we're going to find out in a couple weeks. This is going to be decided. And if he struggles in the preseason and then in that Minnesota Vikings game, I implore Todd Bowles and Dave Canales to have a backup plan ready and pull the trigger sooner rather than later, if that's the case.
And that's really the big question, is what does the depth look like at offensive tackle after Luke Gedeke? And you mentioned School. You mentioned Brandon Walton got to start last year. Walton was okay when he came in for Donovan Smith in that Saints game, but obviously no team game plan for that. Then you have a whole week to game plan, and the results were not the same with Brandon Walton in the game. So I don't even know what's the best option to turn to between School and Brandon Walton if Gedeke doesn't check out. And that's kind of, even going back to the draft. Yes, they drafted Cody Mauch, but the plan the whole time pretty much was to kick him inside. There were mock drafts we had where we had the Bucs drafting an offensive tackle. There were ones where we had the Bucs drafting an offensive tackle in the first round. They chose not really to address that right tackle spot other than moving Luke Gedeke there. And now, it's a big question mark if it doesn't pan out with Luke Gedeke. And that's ultimately a decision that the Bucs made. And the jury's still out, but right now it's not swinging in the proper direction.
We're going to stick to the offensive line topic because we want to get to another big topic on the offensive line. But first, as we always do, if you have a super chat, you're going to move into the front of the line here.
Cut the line.
LDBC's most wanted $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. I always love super chats, especially on a Monday. It starts the week off on such a great note. Saludos PR. My wife just bought me a Winfield Jr. creamsicle jersey. That's a good choice. Is there any rumors on an extension? I would love Winfield. I love Winfield, but would hate to see him leave. Yes, he is going to remain a Buccaneer. There's no doubt about it. I think they're working on the Mike Evans contract extension first, and then I think you're going to see Winfield on deck after that. So yes, hang tight. Keep that jersey. He's not going anywhere for sure. And then real quick on Hans Pennyloaf, the one salient point Josh Capo made in his article defending Gedeke was that because his arms are so short, he has to overset to compensate, and any pass rusher worth the salt is going to abuse that. And, I know he played 2 years of right tackle at Central Michigan. That's not exactly SEC football or Big 12 football or Big 10 football either.
Whatever the conferences are.
That's the MAC. That's the MAC conference. Yeah. And not to say that there's not any good players in the MAC. There are some good players, but this is the NFL level, and this is his second game starting at right tackle in the NFL. He's doing it in a new scheme. Those are facts. Those are not excuses. But guess what? The next game against the Jets will be game 2. The next game against the Ravens will be game 3. The next game against the Vikings is game 4. By game 4, he should have made some significant progress if he's going to stick in that starting lineup, in my opinion.
And let's remember, he had some good moments too, as Josh Capo pointed out in the article. Like he ragdolled a couple of defensive linemen earlier in the game. It's just when you have
against the run, he looked good.
Against the run, he was living up to that moniker that was given to him, the glass eater. And I don't know if Cody Malk had one, but everyone knows that he can bust some heads and crack some skulls as a run blocker. So not all hope is lost with the Bucs offensive line, particularly the right side of the offensive line. There is definitely a sense of urgency, though, to make sure you get everything corrected. And there's there's not much of a sense of urgency with the Bucs moving along Ryan Jensen, but I think there is a sense of urgency and discomfort and worry when it comes to starting center Ryan Jensen. And even today, Todd Bowles had a very odd answer about Ryan Jensen and his status about like preparing to start the season without Ryan Jensen. Todd Bowles said, when we go into the season, I don't consider having anybody if they haven't practiced. You always prepare if somebody gets hurt or if somebody is going to stay hurt. We prepare that way every day, so that hasn't changed. He also said yesterday, when asked about Ryan Jensen, said that there's nothing new to report. So a lot of ambiguity once again with Ryan Jensen. That was the case last year. Anytime Todd Bowles was kind of asked about Jensen, if there's a timeline for his return. Obviously, he came back for the playoff game. And this year, he's kind of sticking to the same script of, I don't really know. When the doctors tell me that he's good to go, he'll be ready.
Pewter people. Ryan Jensen didn't play on Friday. Ryan Jensen did not practice either Sunday or today. It's the first time in camp he is not suited up for back-to-back practices. The arrow's not pointing up for Ryan Jensen, based upon what we know. And there are some people inside the building that are concerned. And then I try to probe other people, and I get crickets. But nobody is happy about where Ryan Jensen is in his recovery. That's for sure. I would have heard that by now. There is some legitimate concern about if Ryan Jensen can get back to being healthy enough to have a much better showing than he did against the Cowboys. Now, remember, let's go back in time. Nick Leverett got injured, and he was the backup center that had to come in. Robert Hainsey injured himself in the first series of the Bucs-Falcons game in the regular season finale back in week 18. Mm-hmm. So Hainsey got hurt. They pulled him out. They put Nick Leverett. They moved him from guard to center, and they put John Molchan in at guard. Leverett ended up getting hurt in that game and was not available for the Cowboys playoff game. So then you had a hurt Hainsey, right? And then you had Ryan Jensen, who had been practicing. And Jensen pretty much said, from what I understand, he wanted to play with Tom Brady and wanted to go out with Brady. And so they thought about maybe having Jensen go in for an emotional lift. He tried it. If you read my story on Saturday, it's the story no one's been talking about during training camp. It's not, if Ryan Jensen can come back or when he can come back, but if he does come back, what type of Ryan Jensen are we going to get? The Ryan Jensen who had a 28.9 Pro Football Focus grade with a 13.3 pass protection grade. That's not the guy they want back. 6 pressures and 1 sack allowed against the Cowboys. Ryan Jensen wasn't really ready to play that game from a physical standpoint.
He admitted it. He admitted it when we spoke to him. He said, I probably shouldn't have played in that game. But, the heart wants what the heart wants, and he wanted to play in that game.
And, Matt, here we are 7 months later, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like, he's somewhere between that Cowboys game, which is the floor, and 100%, right, which is what the Bucs hope and want and what he hopes and wants, right? But the thing is, we don't know where in between the floor, which is that Cowboys game, and the ceiling, which is you're coming back 100% as a Pro Bowler. We don't know where in that realm he is. I think because he hasn't practiced, he's closer to the floor, unfortunately.
That seems to be the case. And there are a couple of things that really come to mind with the Ryan Jensen thing. And they're all just kind of a little bit of confusion and fogginess about this whole situation. Because if Jensen was good to go, why, or if he wasn't good to go, like, why did he have a press conference in front of everybody? What I mean is, after training camp, we get Coach Bowles, and then we get like 1 or 2 players that the PR staff gives us, and they do an awesome job. But typically, if a guy is like injured and not participating, and Jensen's been on and off every single day except for
Yeah.
today and yesterday, typically if they put someone up at the podium, it's someone that's kind of good to go. And
Right.
clearly that hasn't been the case. So why like put him up there in the first place? And he says he's all right, but then
Yeah.
not all right. Two, at the end of the day, Ryan Jensen has to do what's best for him and his family. He obviously
Sure.
talked about how important his family is to him. And he chose not to have that surgery. I'm curious more than anything else. I'm not calling him out for doing it one way
Yeah.
or the other. I'm just curious if he
Does he have any regrets, baby?
Does he have any regrets? Would he be good to go right now if he would have got knee surgery? Because so if Chris Godwin, he was ready to go by the season, and a lot of other guys that have similar knee injuries to Ryan Jensen,
Right.
if you get surgery, then you're able to go. And I just want this out there. I'm not personally calling out Ryan Jensen for not getting surgery because he has to come up with his own plan for his own life. So, he did what is best for him.
Yeah.
The last thing, and I think this really puts it in doubt that Ryan Jensen's going to at least be ready by the time the Bucs play against the Minnesota Vikings.
Right.
They were slowly but surely taking Ryan Jensen along. Practice, don't practice. Practice, don't practice.
Yep.
I don't think, it clearly seems like he's not going to practice against the Jets.
Right.
He's not even participating in 11-on-11s just yet. The way that the Bucs have brought him along does not lead me to believe that following the Jets preseason game, all of a sudden the Bucs are going to go, all right, Ryan, time to ramp it up. We're just going to throw you in 11-on-11s and you're going to play all of the snaps against the defense, good on good, and, going live as well with multiple contact and physicality.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bucs are going to go about it that way because nothing else they've done has shown that they have that plan with Ryan Jensen. So I think this is going to be patience is a virtue, but I think the Bucs are really going to have to be patient with this one because it doesn't look like he's playing soon.
I agree, and it'd be interesting to see what they do and how they end up classifying him, and if they put him on a short-term IR, if he can go, I'm not sure how they're going to handle it, and I don't think that they've wanted to even consider that yet. They'll cross that bridge when they get to it after maybe that third preseason game. Still have 2 weeks before the start of the season to check out the prognosis for what it's going to be this season for Ryan Jensen. But Nick Leverett, I think, is probably 1B, and Robert Hainsey is 1A right now in terms of the center race. And I like Leverett in terms of him being kind of a feistier guy.
Brings some attitude, yeah.
He brings some attitude, and certainly not Ryan Jensen. Neither one of these guys are. That's the issue right there. But there had been some center quarterback exchange problems with Leverett, and I think that might be what's maybe holding him back. And of course, you have Hainsey, right? He was the wire-to-wire starter, and I think he was a competent center last year. They certainly missed Ryan Jensen, and we'll see if Robert Hainsey round 2, if he can build on what he did last year and where his ceiling is. I don't know. We'll have to find out, but it just right now doesn't look like it's going to be Ryan Jensen, and maybe things change in a week or two. We'll see, but we're just reporting what we know right now. And I'll tell you what, here's what we know right now. What we know right now is if you are in the home buying market and you want to either buy or sell a home, there is one place to turn, folks, and that is Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. Now, it takes a full team effort to win in football, and that's the same approach it takes to win in real estate. What we mean by win is if you're selling a house, getting the most value that you can. If you're buying a house, it means getting the best deal that you can in the right neighborhood, in the right community for you and your family. That means more than just finding the ideal house. It's finding the right place to live. And the Eric Gross Group has done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market, and they have experience in all sorts of situations to help you and your family. Now, the reason why we're so excited about Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group is, well, listen, Eric is a Pewter Report reader, and he's a Tampa native who knows this area like the back of his hand. He and his team have got the market knowledge, the top-notch communication and commitment to excellence that sets them apart. With their strong team of vendors, they have a network with the eXp Realty Group that has over 85,000 agents. So let's say you're moving to Florida out of state. They can help you sell your house where you're at and buy a home here in Florida. So they can help you on both ends of the transaction. The Eric Gross Group is going to turn your dream of buying or selling a home into a reality. Their clients are not just transactions. They become lifelong friendships. Don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Let Eric Gross and his team take the pressure off you. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. Check out their website, housesinfla.com, or give them a call at 513-907-4271. That's housesinfla.com. Check out their website for their inventory, and it's a fantastic website, easy to navigate. It's got a great layout to it and inventory galore. So no matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you'll feel welcome at the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Again, visit housesinfla.com.
I saw a comment before. I don't see it, so I apologize for not getting to it. But someone was asking about Rachaad White. There was a brief moment in Sunday's practice where he took a handoff, he fell, kind of grabbed his ankle, stood back up, and was limping. He's fine. He's good to go. He practiced in full today. He actually tweeted last night as well. He's like, "Everybody relax. I'm fine. Good to go." So Rashad's good. He'll be practicing against the Jets. Very excited. For that sentiment. A couple of guys have been out for a couple of days. I mean, obviously, we just talked about Ryan Jensen, but no Yaya Diaby again. He's been out.
I think that's precautionary. They want to save him for the Jets practices. Servassier Dennis, the same thing.
Yeah, Chris Izien was out today, but we spoke to him after, so I imagine he'll be ready to go for the joint practice against the Jets. So
and Josh Hayes really got some extended work. He was the starter today. Pretty much Chris Izien has been, his name's in pencil by Todd Bowles in terms of the starter right now. And I think D. Delaney's probably 2, Josh Hayes number 3. So the longer that Chris Izien is out, it gives Josh Hayes more opportunities to start and play in the defense. And today he had a nice pass breakup in the end zone. Probably should have been a pick. He had another pass breakup. He had a nice sack, but then he also did allow a touchdown from Baker Mayfield to Russell Gage in the back corner of the end zone on a nice fade pass from Baker. So it's going to be interesting how this nickel situation shapes up. It's really kind of been, with all eyes on the quarterback, it's been the one position that hasn't gotten a lot of pub yet. And it's a very important one because it's pretty much a starting position in Todd Bowles' defense. But I think D. Delaney is going to be number 2 in either Izien or Hayes. And right now it's probably Izien is going to be the starter come opening day.
Yeah, Todd Bowles did say on Saturday morning after the game that Izien is the front runner right now. But as you said, Scott, that's in pencil. That could change any moment. And I like what I've seen from Josh Hayes so far. But it is true with nickel slot. Obviously, the Bucs view it as a very important position. Jason Light has said before that he views it as a starting position. And obviously, the quarterback battle, most important one. That's what everyone's talking about. But that's just one against one. Outside linebacker, Todd Bowles said, is the toughest decision on because that's 5 guys competing for one spot. The nickel corner, outside of kicker, which obviously is one against one as well. Right. But, the nickel corner battle is one, you got pretty much 3 guys. So it's the most wide open out of any of them. And because it's a starter, it's the one with the most mystery around it because D. Delaney's kind of played both corner and safety. Right. And then you have 2 rookies in the mix, one drafted, one undrafted, but you have 2 rookies in the mix. So unless D. Delaney wins it.
Did you say draft, Matt?
I did say draft.
Oh, well, it's about that time, is it not, to start drafting your fantasy football team for Underdog Fantasy. Now, folks, there's a couple ways you can play Underdog Fantasy. You can do it on underdogfantasy.com, of course, is the biggest fantasy football contest ever. And you can go up against different people in the Best Ball Mania 4. You can win up to $15 million worth of prizes. There's no trades. There's no waivers. It's one of those leagues you pay $25. You set it and forget it. You draft your team, and then every single week they're going to play the best lineup. You're going to get the points off the best lineup you have. So you draft multiple quarterbacks, multiple receivers, tight ends, running backs, etc. And then you set it and forget it. Now, here's the cool thing. Next week, when Matt gets back from New York, New Jersey, we're going to be starting our own Pewter Report leagues. So if you want to play, you can email us and we'll have all of that information next week on every single podcast we do. We encourage you guys to sign up for Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Mania 4. And we're going to have our own special Pewter Report drafts with you Pewter people. It's going to be fun. So if you want to play in my league, you email me. We'll set up a draft one night. And Matt will do the same thing. If you want to do it with Bailey and Sly and everybody, happy to do that. Check out our social media accounts as well, the individual accounts, and we'll do it on the Pewter Report account as well. For that information, we'd love to play fantasy football with you guys. Now, Matt, the other way that you can play is once the season starts, right? The league, the Best Ball Mania 4 closes, but there's other ways to play fantasy football on Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah, you can go head-to-head against your friends or anyone else. You could pick over-unders on players. You could do rivalries where, Mike Evans to have more receiving yards than, the Bucs opponent that week. So there's so many different ways you can get involved with Underdog Fantasy. They have a lot of in-season tournaments as well, as you see the $10 million playoff pool. A lot of different contests, tournaments, and expands just past football, too. Obviously, we all love football. But you could do it for baseball, basketball when it comes back, hockey as well. Golf is in the mix too. So a ton of great options at Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code Pewter and start making some picks today.
Yeah, and when you use the promo code Pewter, you're going to get a sign-on bonus up to $100. So if you put $100 in, you get $100 extra to play with. So it's great. It's awesome to do the fantasy football tournaments, and the drafts are taking place right now. And again, we'll do some drafts, and you can also do drafts against other people too. You can set up your own leagues with your friends. Make sure you do it at Underdog Fantasy, and make sure you use the promo code Pewter to sign up. That's good for you or anybody. And you'll get up to $100 on your initial deposit too.
And if you want to play against us, feel free to email us, sr@pewterreport.com or matt@pewterreport.com, or hit us up on our social media. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. We are at Pewter Report. And, of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV, where we have the podcast 4 to 5 times a week. We have various clips for practice, a lot of press conference stuff, some think pieces as well. Always a ton of content on our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel, and, of course, on pewterreport.com. So please make sure you're following us. You're really going to want to this week with joint practice coming up on Wednesday. We're going to have a ton of content as myself and Adam, Sly, Slavon are in attendance for that one. So, we'll be live tweeting. We'll put out as much coverage of it as we can. We'll obviously speak to Coach Bowles and some players after, and you'll get our take on everything. Everything Bucs related. Yeah. Probably an Aaron Rodgers tweet here or there.
Podcasts Wednesday and Thursday nights. No podcast tomorrow. The Bucs are off tomorrow. They're traveling up to New Jersey. So no podcast tomorrow. The podcast Wednesday and Thursday, Matt and Adam will be live post-practice with the Bucs and the Jets, 7 o'clock Eastern, right? Because we need to have those guys get back, get some stories.
Have a little travel time, practice a little bit later in New Jersey than it is in Tampa. So we're going prime time at 7. Give the whole down low of everything from both the joint practice and the Bucs practicing against themselves, but in New Jersey. So that's Wednesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. And then on Saturday, after the game, Pewter post-game show. We'll tweet out the time when we do it. It's typically not long after we hear from Coach Bowles and probably Kyle Trask in this one because he's the starter.
Kind of figure 10:45, 11 p.m. That's kind of about what time it was last week. So we'll do that again Saturday night. So again, Wednesday, Thursday night, 7 p.m. And then after the Bucs-Jets preseason game, probably closer to 11:30 actually, because that's a 7:30 kickoff, not just a 7 p.m. kickoff like it was last week. So I think we nailed it. We had a great show, Matt.
We had an awesome show.
Thanks to you, Pewter people.
Super
Super chats,
roll call. Thanks everybody for all your involvement on today's show. Is truly awesome. That's going to do it for us. So for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you on Wednesday live from New Jersey for joint training camp practices for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
R.I.P. Cookie. Miss you, my friend.
Cookie.